Part 3, Chapter 1. The Wolfman's Howl. The storm still howled over the cliffs when Alaric Ashbury crested the ridge. His body was no longer that of a man, but the towering, lupine figure the curse had shaped across centuries. Black fur clung to his broad frame, his yellow eyes burned like a molten fire, and his claws gleamed under the storm's flash. Each step toward the manor was deliberate, the weight of vengeance carried in his stride. The grounds of Blackthorn stretched before him, a sprawl of gardens drowned in rain and shadow, beyond which the manor loomed, its windows glowing faintly against the storm. He paused, lifted his head, and loosed a howl. It split the night, deeper, stronger, more terrible than any that had ever shaken the Ashbury line. Inside the manor, the sound carried through every stone, rattling the portraits in their frames, stirring dust from the beams. Lady Margaret froze in the great hall, her cane trembling beneath her grip. Her silver hair caught the firelight as she raised her face toward the storm, her expression stricken with something rare. Fear. Lady Margaret, sharply, to the gathered family. "It is him, Alaric. He comes for us." A second howl rolled in, shaking the windows like a hammer blow. The gathered Ashburys stirred, their eyes flashing, their forms twitching with the beast within. Lady Margaret's voice rose, sharp as steel.
"We must stop him! If he reaches us, he will destroy the bloodline!"
"We cannot allow it. Defend the manor. Stop him, or the Ashbury name dies tonight." Around her, the family bristled, half men and half wolves, waiting for the storm to deliver their doom to the gates. Chapter 2. The Fall of the Ashburys. The great hall's roar, fire and storm and raw animal breath, became a battlefield in a single, impossible heartbeat. Lady Margaret did not wait. With her cane held like a staff of command, she turned and ran down the corridor, voice cracked and urgent as she called,
"Jonas! To me now!"
Her heels clattered on the stone as she disappeared into the depths, leaving the pack to the duty she had set them to. The pack responded with low rumbles, a chorus of teeth and claws, eyes reflecting the hearthlight as they readied themselves by the double doors. Then the doors shattered, wood splintered and ricocheted, ancient ironwork tore free. Alaric filled the doorway as if the stone itself had given way to him. He was massive, not simply larger than the others, but older, broader, the original terror given time and wrath. Wet fur dripped from him like shadow, his presence swallowing the light. He stood so still that at first it seemed the storm had paused. Dust fell around him in slow, sickly spirals. For a long beat, he did not look up. The loom of his shoulders, the black of his fur, the way his breath steamed in the cold air, that was the shape of a god. The pack advanced as one, a ripple of snarling bodies. They fanned out, claws ready, eyes burning with the certainty of kin and command. They closed the distance. Time seemed to congeal. The hearths sputter, the stray embers fall, the soft scrape of claws on flagstone. Alaric's head rose like a tide. His eyes snapped open, molten gold, incandescent and merciless. In that instant, every coursing muscle and feral instinct the pack had ever relied on turned to stone. The first leapt. He crushed it, as one might clap a fly between palms. The second came with a barbaric pounce. He caught it mid-air, twisted, and flung it against the portrait frame. The timber splintered. The creature slumped and did not rise. The third surged, teeth bared. Alaric split it with a single backward sweep that tore body and pride alike. The rest broke. Some tried to rally, then fled, claws scrabbling, breath ragged. Others retreated into the corridors, dragging mangled kin in their wake. Alaric did not give chase in a mad stampede. He moved with cold, precise intent, hunting them down with the patience of a tide that will not be resisted. He stalked through the hall, scent leading him from shadow to shadow, and the manor became a map of fallen blood and torn fabric. The great hall was a ruin of shattered furniture, ripped portraits, and the silence of slaughter. Alaric stood in the center, not triumphant, but inevitable. Rain from his hide hissing as it hit the hearth heat. His chest rose and fell slowly. He had not merely fought, he had executed a sentence. He looked once at the ruined family, and as if tasting the last of a bitter bread, turned and moved deeper into the manor, hunting, cleansing, driven by a code that would not stop until the Ashbury line itself was erased. He believed in the curse with such purity that destruction, even of himself, by eliminating the seed of the line, felt like righteous absolution. Chapter 3. Edward's Return and Alaric's Hunt. The storm did not relent. Its winds clawed at the cliff as Edward's hands, bleeding and raw, clutched the rope. The cave yawned below him, promising a black eternity if he slipped. But he did not slip. Inch by inch he climbed, every muscle trembling with exhaustion, until at last he pulled himself over the lip of the cliff. He collapsed in the wet grass, chest heaving, then turned his head. Across the estate grounds, the manor burned with light and storm fire. From within came a sound that froze his blood, the howl of Alaric, not the cry of a beast, but the voice of doom. Edward staggered to his feet, his only thought clear. Clara. She's in there. I must save her. As he set his jaw and prepared to run, a figure stepped from the shadows. Evelyn, her gown soaked, her eyes lit with something like fury or desire. Evelyn, it was I who threw the rope. If not for me, you would be bones at the bottom of that pit, and Alaric still chained to his eternity. You see, you and I, we can be the new Ashburys. Let them destroy each other. Let Alaric tear down what remains. You and I will begin again. Our bloodline will thrive, strong and unbroken. Edward met her gaze. His lips twitched into a weary smile. Edward, thank you for the rope. His expression hardened. But I can think of nothing worse than being with you. He turned, walking toward the manor with grim purpose. Evelyn's face collapsed, disappointment, curdling into rage as the storm swallowed her silhouette. Inside the manor, horror reigned. Alaric moved room to room, unstoppable. One of the kin, still half in wolf shape, lunged at him. He seized it by the throat and crushed it into the flagstone. The creature shrieked as its body reverted, fur receding, bones snapping back into the frail shape of a man. Man, pleading, broken. No, please. Please. A sickening crunch, then silence. The wolfman rose, golden eyes aflame, and stalked deeper into the manor. Wherever he went, whatever he found, he destroyed. Chapter 4. The great doors of Blackthorn Manor hung broken on their hinges, splintered by force. Edward stepped through, breath shallow, the smell of blood and smoke thick in the air. The echo of Alaric's fury still rang in the stones, though for the moment, silence cloaked the hall. He paused, his hands clenching and unclenching. He had nothing. No blade, no weapon, nothing but his will to survive and to find Clara. On the walls, swords of old hung as relics, trophies of ancestors. He stared at them, felt their weight in his mind. Pointless, he thought bitterly. Rusted ornaments. What use against monsters? Then his eyes caught something else. At the far end of the wall, half hidden in shadow, hung a cane. It was old, polished wood, smooth with age, but its head was no mere handle. shaped into the snarling visage of a wolf. The end gleamed in the firelight. Not steel, not iron, silver. Edward's chest tightened. His breath caught. He knew, instinctively, what this was. An heirloom, perhaps the first Ashbury's, perhaps more than that. A weapon. He lunged forward, arm outstretched, and was slammed sideways. The force knocked the air from his lungs. He hit the ground hard, pain lancing his ribs. His eyes flicked up. And there she was, a werewolf, towering above him, fur slick with shadow, eyes burning gold. A female. Evelyn. He knew it, even through the monstrous form. Her snarl curled almost into a smile, as though mocking him. Her clawed hand pressed to his chest, pinning him. She leaned closer, fangs bared, as if to whisper without words. "You should have taken my offer." Edward strained, head twisting. There, the cane, just out of reach, lying across the stone floor. His fingers scraped desperately toward it, nails catching only dust. Evelyn's claw raked across his side, hot blood spilling. She lowered her head, jaws opening wide. With a desperate surge, Edward rolled, pain searing through his body as her fangs struck stone. He stretched, seized the cane, and swung as she leapt. The silver wolf's head struck true, cracking beneath her jaw with a sickening force. Her snarl died in her throat. She collapsed to the ground, her body twisting, shrinking, fur receding. Within moments, Evelyn lay before him once more in human form, pale and still upon the floor. Edward, chest heaving, held the cane aloft. His knuckles were white, but his eyes gleamed with a new fire. Edward, grim, under his breath. "Now this is a weapon to destroy the Ashburys." The storm outside roared as if in answer, the silver wolf's head glinting in his hand like the promise of reckoning. Chapter 5. The manor burned with silence. Each step Edward took echoed against the shattered walls, his boots crunching through glass and splintered wood, the smell of smoke and blood thick in the air. The great house that once stood proud was now a tomb of its own history. "Clara!" he shouted, his voice bouncing through corridors that no longer seemed to end. He pushed open door after door. Nothing. Rooms torn apart, portraits slashed, the echoes of violence still alive in the walls. Finally, he reached the far end of the west wing, the door to Clara's chamber. It hung half open, the wind pushing it gently back and forth. Edward burst through, his heart hammering. The bed was overturned, the window cracked open to the storm outside. The ropes that had once bound her lay on the floor. Cut. She was gone. He turned, breath ragged, scanning the empty hallways. Somewhere deep inside the manor, he thought he could still hear movement. Faint footsteps, dragging across the marble. He ran, his coat trailing behind him, calling her name again and again. Outside, beneath the wrath of the storm, Lady Margaret staggered through the open doorway of Blackthorn Manor. Her cane struck the earth in furious rhythm as she disappeared into the trees, a lone silhouette against the flashing sky. Back inside, Jonas moved through the debris like a ghost. His once pristine clothes were torn, his face streaked with ash and blood. In his grasp, he pulled Clara, half conscious, through the rubble-strewn hallway towards the outer courtyard. She fought him weakly, her hands clawing at the floor. "Let me go," she gasped, her voice trembling. Jonas's eyes burned with a mixture of desperation and delusion. "There's nothing left here," he hissed. "Do you hear me? They're all dead. Margaret, the pack, all of them. We're the last. The last of Ashbury. We must escape before he finds us." Clara struggled, glaring up at him through tears. "I'll never go with you." Jonas stopped, his chest heaving, the storm howling around them. "Then you'll die here," he said coldly. because he's coming for us all. Lightning tore across the sky. For a brief instant, through the rain and chaos, Clara thought she saw a figure at the edge of the courtyard. Tall, dark, massive, a shape against the storm, moving closer. The howl that followed shook the very bones of Blackthorn Manor, and with it came the end.
Alaric! I did what was necessary! I said I had to continue the bloodline. My choice was you. It always was. What was I to do when you jumped from the cliff and left me alone? What was I to do? So I found someone who could do what you could not. It's not too late for us. We can still be together. Forget Jonas and that woman. The bloodline can continue. Think of what we had. We can have it again. Bloodline will be stronger than any curse, Alaric. If you will not sire the bloodline, I will find someone who will. Is anyone there? Forget Jonas and that woman!
And that woman!